My dad was not in World War II, but in Korea. My grandfather was in World War II. My grandfather on my mother's side, he was with Patton's 3rd Army at the Battle of the Bulge. When he enlisted in Missouri, he was already a father of 4, with my grandmother being pregnant with my mother. But he had the call to go to duty. So he went, and he came back. He was in the Battle of Bulge. He got fragged or shrapnel when the tanks came in, and so he was brought back from that as a casualty, working with the VA, first with the military Army, and then with the military VA as it was established. And he spent the next 18 years going back and forth to the VA with his injuries. That's where I met him first off when I was a young man of, I'd say, 6, 7. And that's when I first met him, was at the VA down in Missouri, southeast Missouri. In the hospital, but he was going back and forth between the living center because he couldn't take care of himself too much. He went through multiple surgeries to get out as much of the other fragmentation that was in his body. And then the follow-on injuries with his kidneys and all that. Either a grenade blast or a shell blast hit him and his platoon, which he survived. He and I don't know how many others survived and how many were killed in that blast. This is when the Germans were doing the Battle of the Bulge, trying to penetrate the line again, to break through. And so his injuries were across his abdominal and his shoulder line, his right shoulder line, not the left. My dad was involved with the Berlin airlift, and he was a mechanic for all the hydraulics and the landing gear. So he was in Germany on the west side, and that's what he did for the bulk of his tour for 3.5 years. He was invested in that, but my dad was didn't like to take orders too much. He liked working on the equipment, the mechanics, and he did his 4 years, and he got out. I joined the Navy in 1976 in Albuquerque, New Mexico. I had planned to join the Air Force as a loadmaster, but they changed the eyesight requirements, and so I went Navy because I was in the Navy JROTC at the time, and turned out to be one of the better decisions. 24 years. Originally went in as electronics warfare technician. That transitioned to communications technician, radioman electronics technician. I did, my first sea tour was on the Mount Whitney, LCC 20. Then it went into shipyards, and I didn't want to go and stay in the shipyards for 1.5 years, so I transferred to submarines. Submarines was on the USS Guardfish out of San Diego, and I did 3 years on that. During that time, some SEALs, Navy SEALs came on, and I wound up being their grease monkey for their small boat engine and waterproofing their radios. That led to an invitation to join them as a support communications electronics. I took full advantage of that and transferred to work for them. I did that for 10.5 years around the world. Wound up in Norway after that for 2 years. 2 years of good tour for NATO and 2 years of Bosnia for the bad tour. In Bosnia, in 1997, I called for orders, and they offered me Guam, Japan, and Hawaii. I chose Hawaii as the only state they offered me. Technically wise, there's a lot of technical electronics, etc. involved with that, so I was happy. Yo, Hawaii. My grandfather on my father's side served in World War I as a very young 18, 19-year-old. He never wanted to talk about it. I really didn't get to know him that well. But my grandfather on my mother's side, he still did not want to talk about it, but the memories as history builds on itself, and now being in Hawaii, I see a lot more of the history being made from that experience. Never forget Pearl Harbor, as far as the battlegrounds. What you guys do, maintaining that memory and that history is very important. To me, I can consider myself a pay it forward type person. I pay it forward for my grandparents, my grandfather, and my father, and all my uncles that were served as well. I feel that the education system has degraded to the point where it's only certain metrics that they have to perform at. They don't go beyond that metrics. They don't teach history, of living history. History repeats itself, but no one knows about it until they happens to it. Pearl Harbor is one of those greatest examples of the greatest generation. And I've had the very distinct honor and pleasure of meeting quite a few while living in Hawaii for December 7th, as well as the other events midway. Part of that is through the JROTC program and giving them the chance to know about it. I would love to see that more brought forward. The pass down has lost the generational pool, and I think that's very important that we try to bring back. In our current situation with the Pacific region being a primary key aspect of the economics and what we have to prepare for, it comes full circle almost as far as the events. My cousins of my age or Vietnam age, they had the chance to talk to our grandparents and find out more as we go through the military. I have an Air Force cousin, a retired Air Force cousin. I had an Army retired cousin who passed from Agent Orange. But prior to that, he had the chance to actually talk to our grandfather because he was coming back from Vietnam after his first tour. So he needed to talk to somebody from combat, and he had the chance to talk to our grandfather. And he went back for a second tour, but it made a difference with him understanding he had somebody to talk to. I feel we're in a unique location in Hawaii because history was there. Not so much in the Midwest of the United States. We have the chance to keep that history alive. I'd like to think that we tried to do that through the veteran service organizations, but with the Pacific Historical Parks being a part of that, keeping the memory alive with the Arizona, the Utah, the Battleship Missouri, the both in my case, the submarines. Thank you for doing this. Thank you for being part of it.